Hi guys, it's Debbie, and it feels like an absolute lifetime since I stood here to make a complete standalone review of a film. But I really wanted to speak about Zack Snyder's Justice League, which after all is one of this year's biggest releases. A very quick background as to why this film even exists in the first place is needed, otherwise many things later on in this video won't make any sense. Basically, a few years back, director Zack Snyder started working on the original Justice League film, but allegedly there were clashes between his vision of the film, the demands of the producers, deadlines that needed to be met, contrasting ideas as to how the film should have been. There were many rumours. Whatever happened, it was a hot mess. So another director, Joss Whedon, was brought in to give a hand on the film, which definitely didn't help as there were more and more ideas being put into this project. Then unfortunately, Zack Snyder's daughter passed away. So if working on Justice League wasn't tough enough, of course at this point the director understandably left the project to dedicate more time to his personal life. The other director, Joss Whedon, carried on working on the film, but basically by then the movie was what some have described as a Frankenstein project, whereas a patch of different shots, different themes, moods, all trying to fulfill higher above requests. When it was released, it was met with awful reviews, and I agree with them. So basically, this new Justice League is Zack Snyder returning a few years later, bringing the film as he meant it to be in his original vision. And boy, was there a difference. And unless you were super into the topic, what most of the general audience grasped from all of this situation was Zack Snyder was a bad director because his name stayed tied to that first Justice League, although he left the project. So Zack Snyder made an awful film, and now he's back to remake an edited version of it. And why should I rewatch Justice League again? It can't change that much. And to be honest, I didn't know about all the struggles that went into the production of the film. I didn't know about Zack Snyder's daughter until just a few months ago. So an important thing that has to be noted is that even if you have seen the first Justice League movie, this feels like a completely new, different project. And although some shots were set up like they were in the first film, many scenes were reshot or added from scratch, the digital effects were improved, the dialogues were improved. It is much longer, so there is a lot more space to analyse the characters, new background information is provided. So while the first Justice League just felt like a botched, stitched together superhero film but with a huge budget, this was actually a solid story. I'm not going to speak about the actual plot in full detail to avoid spoilers, but basically the Justice League is a team of superheroes formed by Bruce Wayne, Batman, in order to defend Earth from a very dangerous attack from outer space. But instead of focusing just on the action side of the story, the movie analyzes all the characters. For example, some of them are reluctant to join the Justice League because of past issues, others are dealing with their own personal problems, but they all team up because the world needs them. So one of the problems that this new Justice League movie solves is that we actually get to know the characters, including the ones that have always been considered less important, something which I think was overlooked in the first movie. Usually when speaking about superheroes, DC superheroes, it's just the holy trinity of Batman, Superman and Wonder Woman. And it is understandable, as after all they are the founding fathers of DC comic characters, but in many works they tend to overshadow other characters who are equally important or important for the story. For example, Flash and Cyborg are always at the end of any list, they're always at the side of any poster. It's always Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Flash and Cyborg. But in the Snyder Cut, we actually delve deep into all the characters. Actually, in some moments, it nearly felt like the film just assumes that we know everything about Batman. Let's focus on the new characters. Or for example, instead of just focusing on the sad Batman trope, let's try to figure out why Bruce Wayne is so broody, what's picking at the back of his mind. Now, speaking of less covered characters, one of my favourites is The Flash, portrayed by Ezra Miller. Now, I love Ezra Miller, I think he's a great actor, I've liked him in every film I've seen with him, and many have said that basically his character was the only thing that kind of saved the first Justice League film, because he has a very cheerful, witty personality, probably to match his hyperactive way of living. He is the Flash after all. But it was limited to the comedic relief side of his personality. Whereas in this new Justice League film, I laughed out loud, but I was also nearly crying in some scenes. There are some very emotional interactions with people close to him in his personal life. We see more about him beyond just him eating pizza and cracking a couple of jokes. And it is very clearly shown that without him, the Justice League wouldn't be the same. He is not just a sidekick. And the same goes for Victor, Cyborg. Apparently, most of the character analysis and development was completely cut out of the first film. But in the Snyder Cut, we definitely get to see more about him, learn more about his life, and actually find out how powerful he is. Basically, without spoilers, Victor had a bad accident, and to save his life, his father rebuilt him as a cyborg. And later on in life, this entailed a lot of things, for example, not feeling like he has a normal life, or feeling a bit resentful about the whole situation. But one thing I'd completely be sleeping on is just how powerful Cyborg is. Ray Fisher, the actor who portrays Cyborg, tweeted out saying that his character's powers are comparable only to Dr. Manhattan's. And that's a pretty big statement, as Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen is one of the most powerful DC characters ever created. So a lot of people just took it as a fun poke. But after watching this film, I can definitely see where that comparison came from. Another aspect the first Justice League just kind of touched upon was just how reluctant Aquaman is to join the Justice League, which in the first film was reduced to just a comedic relief and funnier interactions. But here in the Snyder Cut, we delve deeper into his reasoning, and although Aquaman is never a man of many words, a lot is conveyed. I think we can all agree that this film is very respectful about the characters. Sometimes with these huge movies, you lose knowledge of what you're actually watching because you're so hyped up and lost in the punches and explosions. But for the first time in a long time, with this film, I actually processed the fact that the characters I watching were basically gods. Some of them are actually gods. The simplified idea of them avoiding a bullet or being super buff and lifting up heavy objects is completely swiped away. I know this sounds cringy, but I felt in awe in some scenes, but zip because of spoilers. Now, as I brought up Watchmen, there are a couple of things I want to quickly mention. Now, Watchmen is again directed by Zack Snyder, and I've often said this is one of my favourite superhero movies for a series of reasons. First of all, you can watch it without knowing anything about the characters' past, about the lore of their world, without watching 15 previous movies. It's a solid, well-balanced combination of character analysis and an engaging storyline. And I think that in Justice League, Zack Snyder managed to achieve this balance once again. Theoretically, my mum could watch the Snyder Cut, only knowing of Ben Affleck as the guy from back in Good Will Hunting. It never becomes a character biopic, but also never just a random hyped up battle with, the heroes we all know about. Of course, the lengthy runtime allows for a lot more space to explore and analyse the characters. This movie is roughly 4 hours long, but there are two big buts. Firstly, myself and many other people agreed that it doesn't actually feel like a 4-hour movie because of the pacing, because the story keeps you engaged all the way through. Secondly, the film is split into 5 or 6 chapters. It's not like watching a 4-hour movie at the cinema where you can't even take a toilet break. You're watching it from the comfort of your home with a handy pause button next to you, and the fact of the chapters potentially allows you to split the movie into reasonable moments. You could potentially watch this like a mini-series. Okay, now before we go on, let's cover some of the negative aspects, because there are a few. First of all, the dialogues are still a bit for example, without spoilers, in one scene, Wonder Woman is explaining what the mother boxes are, these objects which play a very important role in the story. So of course, quite a bit of exposition is needed so that everybody can understand and enjoy the movie. So she's explaining what the mother boxes are, and then the screen cuts to a flashback showing the images of what she's explaining. But when it cuts, her voice also cuts, and it sounds exactly like somebody who's straightforward just reading a script, like with the same intonation, with the same pauses. It just felt a bit fake. Another scene I didn't like, this is a very quick moment, again without spoilers. It's in the hospital when Victor's dad, Cyborg's dad, is told that his son won't make it, hence why he becomes the cyborg, but it literally plays out like the doctor saying, "Your son won't make it. Oh." Anyway, one thing a lot of people have been complaining about since the first Snyder Cut trailers were released is that the CGI looks weird. And although I agree that in some moments it does look a bit odd, this is coming from a director who loves this hyper-dramatic epic look. Remember 300? He was the director of that, and even the sex scenes were super enhanced and slow-mode. Is the "This is Sparta" scene realistic? No. Does it look awesome? Absolutely. Same goes for Watchmen. You know it's a real-life setting, but you're always reminded it's from a comic book. He's literally famous for often using slow motion in fight sequences, something which you would always associate to rapid and very edited shots. Some people have used the words self-indulgent to describe the atmosphere he tries to convey. It would be like taking a Wes Anderson movie and complaining about it being too quirky and symmetrical and unrealistic. So even here in this new Justice League, you are constantly reminded that this is not a realistic world, although it's a realistic setting, if you see what I mean, even if it's just Lois stepping out in the street. Okay, now let's get to the character everybody's curious about, Joker. Of course, I'm not going to say what the Joker actually does in the film or what he says, but I can speak about him in general. And here comes the topic of, well, nobody will be as good as Heath Ledger. I've talked about this countless times, so I'm not going to bore you again, but just for those in the back, if an actor portrayed a character in an awesome manner, it doesn't mean that nobody else in the whole history of cinema can never portray that character ever again. Robert Pattinson can't be Batman because Christian Bale was good at it. Goodness knows what will happen when the MCU has to change some actors. I've personally always found Jared Leto a very fascinating actor. I think he's a person who's very committed to his roles. It's not all just prosthetics and gaining or losing weight. It's about putting everything in a role. That's why I've always said if Suicide Squad hadn't been a shitty movie, his Joker wouldn't actually have been that bad, just the context and script were awful. Also, Jared Leto has clearly explained that working with different directors on different projects brings out different aspects of a character. So the Joker you saw in Suicide Squad won't necessarily be the same kind of Joker you will see here in the Snyder Cut. Does this mean I'm considering him better than Heath Ledger's Joker or the same? No, it's just two completely different projects, two ideas, two different visions. Am I pleased with what I saw of the Joker in the Snyder Cut? Yes. Would I like to see more of him? Absolutely. So summarizing, some people have said that this film is what happens when you run your dreams into a ditch. But I think that whatever your opinion on the film is, Zack Snyder definitely needs praise for following a project to the end, a dream, a vision, and showing it to the world under his perspective. And the film definitely teases more in the future, not necessarily with Snyder. Apparently he's lately been saying he wants to step back from superhero movies for the time, but whether it's with Snyder, whether it's just in our imagination, whether it's in other spin-off movies, this film definitely puts out a lot of ideas. And as we're reaching the end of the video, I wanted to quickly speak about a topic which isn't necessarily strictly related to the Snyder Cut, but to the film-loving community in general. If there's one thing I hate more than spoilers, it's toxic people with toxic comments. We're all part of fandoms, we're all die-hard fans of our favourite characters, we've all expressed harsh criticisms about certain cinematic choices, we've all made good-spirited fun at certain decisions, and I've always been proud that our community here has always been very respectful. I'm very proud about how we exchange opinions, about how it is acknowledged that not everybody knows everything about every film ever made, how liking a certain actor or a genre or a film doesn't make you stupid, and I really appreciate that. And everything that went down with Justice League in recent years made a lot of people reflect about how actors were bullied into deleting their social media because people didn't like their role. Doing live streams talking about Justice League and talking about how we haven't killed enough Asian people right after Asian people were killed and Zack Snyder's Asian daughter committed suicide. That's a very toxic environment, and I just wanted to thank you for not being like that. You're great, you're always open, you're respectful, and I really appreciate that. And I think on that note, we have reached the end of the video. Let me know what you think about the whole Justice League film, about the old one, about the new one, about the Snyder Cut in general. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.